I remember the first time I opened the pages of the Book of Enoch. The air changed. It felt ancient, electric, as though something holy and forbidden stirred in the silence. Unlike the canonized Gospels, this was scripture that bled light from its edges, a book that survived by hiding in the shadows of history. It was said to have been written before the flood, when God still walked among men. A prophet, Enoch, the seventh generation from Adam, claimed to have been taken alive into the heavens, shown the machinery of creation itself. But the story the book tells is far more dangerous. It speaks of watchers, angels who fell to earth to teach forbidden arts, to mate with mortal women, and to give birth to a hybrid race, the Nephilim, the giants who nearly destroyed the world. This was no mere myth. It was a mirror showing the price of knowledge, the shadow behind enlightenment. For Enoch saw what no human was meant to see, and wrote it down. The Book of Enoch is the record of heaven's rebellion, earth's corruption, and the eternal consequence of divine curiosity. And as I read it, I realized the fall was not a singular event. It was a cycle. It was us. The text begins with thunder. It describes a time when the sons of heaven gazed upon the daughters of earth and found them fair. Led by Semjaza, 200 angels descended upon Mount Hermon, a place still rumored to hum beneath the stones with ancient fire. There they swore an oath, binding themselves to one another in rebellion. They were called watchers, meant to guide mankind. But in the heart of their compassion, temptation bloomed. They taught men the art of war, women the craft of adornment, metalwork, enchantments, alchemy, astrology. The very foundations of civilization were born from their fall, but their union with humankind birthed something monstrous. The Nephilim, giants of immense power and appetite, who devoured the earth, drank its blood, and tore its harmony apart. Humanity, blessed with divine knowledge but cursed by divine sin, cried out to heaven for mercy, and heaven answered with judgment. What the Book of Enoch reveals is not just a myth of angels who fell for love or lust, but a cosmic tragedy. The watchers became symbols of the Promethean impulse, the desire to know what only the gods should. And as with Prometheus, their fire became both the light of wisdom and the spark of ruin. The cries of humankind reached the throne, and the archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel, were sent to bear witness. They saw the world drowning in chaos, giants towering like mountains, devouring all that lived. In Enoch's vision, the very heavens trembled. Uriel was commanded to warn Noah of the coming flood, Raphael to bind Azazel, the teacher of forbidden weapons, in the desert of Dudael, buried beneath jagged stones. Michael was sent to gather the watchers and deliver them to judgment. But in the midst of divine wrath there was one chosen mortal, Enoch himself. He was summoned as a scribe, a witness to record the decrees of heaven. Imagine the terror of that calling. A man standing between angels and annihilation, quill trembling as he writes the verdict of the cosmos. He pleaded on behalf of the fallen, carrying their petition to the gates of glory. But the word came back, unyielding. There shall be no peace for the watchers. Enoch, the bridge between the mortal and the eternal, watched as his prayers fell silent into the void. And yet, through his tears, he wrote every line, every judgment, every revelation. It is through that obedience that humanity inherited a glimpse of the divine machinery. Then Enoch is lifted, not metaphorically but bodily, into the heavens. He describes being carried by angelic beings through realms of fire and crystal, through wheels within wheels, where time itself folded like parchment. He saw the structure of creation, the sun and moon guided by intelligent spirits, the vaults of the stars inscribed with the names of angels, the winds bound by laws older than the earth. He beheld the tree of life, luminous and vast, whose fragrance filled the cosmos, a mirror to the Edenic myth but told from beyond the veil. In these visions, heaven is not a paradise of clouds, but a living architecture of consciousness, a divine machine governed by harmony, number, and light. And Enoch was shown the watchers who stood guard at each gate, beings of incomprehensible form, part human, part flame. They revealed to him the secret of the stars, the measure of time, the origin of spirits, and the fate of souls after death. What he recorded became the foundation for apocalyptic vision, influencing everything from Revelation to Dante's Paradiso. The book is the missing key between Genesis and Apocalypse, the secret scroll that joins beginning and end. To read it is to glimpse the architecture of eternity, and to realize that heaven, once glimpsed, is never entirely closed again. Enoch returns to the mountain of his vision. He beholds the bound watchers, their light dimmed, their wings chained beneath mountains of stone. He sees Azazel imprisoned in darkness, his once radiant form now shrouded in molten iron, and he hears the voice of the Most High declare that the earth shall be cleansed by water. Here myth and memory merge. The deluge, remembered in countless cultures, is presented not as random wrath but divine surgery, a cleansing of hybrid corruption. The giants, unable to die as mortals do, become disembodied spirits. The origin, says Enoch, of demons. Their hunger for sensation, their thirst for blood, continued long after their bodies turned to dust. They roam the world, whispering into the minds of the living. They are the echoes of the forbidden union, eternal reminders of a knowledge mankind was never meant to possess. And in the midst of ruin, Enoch is told something profound, that one day the Son of Man, a messianic figure of luminous fire, will descend to judge both angels and men. This passage predates Christ by centuries, yet mirrors his title, his power, his cosmic role. The Book of Enoch thus becomes the bridge between ancient Judaism and early Christianity, a prophecy that history tried to forget, yet could never erase. So why then was it hidden? Why was the Book of Enoch removed from the canon, burned, and branded heretical? The answer lies in its danger. It grants knowledge without permission, a map of heaven drawn by human hand. It speaks of divine beings that err, of sacred laws that can be broken, of a cosmos governed not by perfection but by conflict and evolution. For the Church, such ideas were poison, and yet fragments of it survived, buried in desert caves, preserved by the Ethiopian Church, and later rediscovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls. It traveled in whispers through Gnostic sects and mystic brotherhoods. For the initiates of secret orders, it became a coded testament, proof that enlightenment comes at a cost. To read Enoch is to stare directly at the forbidden light that burned the watchers, and perhaps to see one's own reflection in it, because within the fall of angels lies the story of human ascent, our endless climb toward the unknown, despite the warning written in fire. Few texts describe the cosmos like Enoch's. He tells of the seven heavens, each more radiant than the last, realms of vibration, color, and sound. In the first he saw imprisoned stars, fallen luminaries punished for abandoning their courses. In the second he saw warriors of light preparing for the day of judgment. In the third he saw the paradise of righteous souls, a garden beyond mortality. In the fourth, the celestial bodies themselves, living entities bound by sacred law. In the fifth and sixth he saw the choirs of angels and the powers that hold creation in balance, and in the seventh he beheld the throne surrounded by the infinite. This layered cosmos would inspire countless mystic systems. Kabbalah, Hermeticism, early Christian Apocrypha, and even Islamic angelology. It's the architecture of metaphysical order, the spiritual physics of reality itself. But Enoch's revelation wasn't just cosmic, it was personal. When he returned to earth, his face shone with light. He could no longer dwell among men, for his vibration had changed. He had seen the source, and nothing on earth could bind him any more. Then he was taken alive into the heavens. The mortal became immortal. The scribe became a star, and his name, Enoch, would become synonymous with hidden wisdom, the one who walked with God and lived to tell what he saw. The Book of Enoch ends not with finality, but with echo. It tells us that history repeats, that what was will be again, that the age of the Watchers, the rise of forbidden knowledge, and the corruption of creation are not ancient events, but cyclical truths. Every age births its own Watchers, beings of intellect who descend to gift humanity with knowledge we are not yet ready for. The fire of alchemy, the code of machines, the algorithms of consciousness. We stand once again at the threshold between heaven and earth, where light and arrogance intertwine. The question Enoch leaves us is not whether angels fell, it's whether we have now become them. Creators without restraint, innovators without reverence, forging weapons of light and thought that may yet destroy us. But Enoch's message is not despair, it is remembrance. He reminds us that wisdom must be tempered with awe and knowledge with humility, that to see the face of God and survive one must not only look upward, but inward. In the final vision he beholds a great mountain of fire, the throne of the Ancient of Days, and the Son of Man seated upon it, surrounded by hosts of light. He hears the promise of renewal, that creation itself will be healed, and he writes these words as his final testimony: "Blessed is he who awakens." The book closes, but the echo remains, a whisper beneath the stones of Mount Hermon, in the dreams of mystics, in the pulse of stars. The story of the Watchers is the story of us, the eternal struggle between ascent and fall, between illumination and flame. And so, as I close the pages of that forbidden scripture, I feel its gaze return my own. It does not end, it waits. You've been watching the Esoteric Unveiled, exploring hidden orders, forgotten truths, and forbidden knowledge. Like and subscribe.